folks, welcome back to another one of our resource videos. So I'm really excited to have the guest on and be talking about what we're talking about today. I think you're going to get a lot of really great, enriching information from this particular chat. I'm Jennifer Connect, Vice President of Marketing and Sales for Emmanuel, and I'm so excited to have with me today one of my colleagues and one of the most extraordinary people that if you ever have the opportunity to meet her in person, you will absolutely agree with me. Pastor Peggy Hall, Vice President of Mission and Spiritual Care for Emmanuel. Peggy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's great to be with you.
So folks, today we're going to talk about, we've been socially isolating now for quite some time, trying to hunker down at home as successfully as we possibly can. And this whole series is about thriving, not just surviving. And who better to help us talk about ways in which we can be inspired, ways in which we can find enrichment in the small moments, or ways in which we can really lean on our faith to help us through this time of hunkering down. You know, it gets a little tough for sure. Human beings are intended to be social in some capacity, to connect, even if you're an introverted individual. I would wager to guess that you probably are missing some of the social interactions that you normally had and having to rethink about how we connect with and continue to build meaningful relationships and find enriching moments in our life. But before we jump into all of that, I know I mentioned briefly, at least globally, what Peggy does for Emmanuel, but Peggy, tell us a little more about yourself and your role and how you really got to where you are today.
I am an ELCA pastor, and that's a pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And I've served with Emmanuel for over 20 years. And I served also in our campuses as a pastor there. And my calling with Emmanuel is to make sure our mission of Christ-centered service to seniors, each other in the community, is lived out. And also our promises. Most companies have a mission and values. We have mission and promises. And we promise these things: that we will show compassion, we will honor, relationships are important, integrity, we will serve, and teamwork. So my job is to make sure that we're living these out at Emmanuel, and I see them being lived out by our remarkable staff each and every day.
Right. So, I mean, and this is actually so meaningful and near and dear to my heart, but it's so refreshing to be in an organization, Emmanuel's certainly this, and I'm sure you would echo it, Peggy, to be at a place and to serve at a place where the promises, the values of the organization are not just words written on the wall, but they're really truly brought into the daily work that we do each and every day in how we serve one another and how we serve our seniors.
Well, definitely. And I even get to see our staff surveys on the question of, do you believe we live our mission? And over 97% of our staff in our communities truly believe we live our mission. And that's just outstanding.
Oh, that's amazing. It really, truly is amazing, for sure. Top to bottom, left to right, front to back, I can certainly say that Emmanuel is an amazing place to be, an amazing place to serve, and really takes very seriously every single decision that we make. In fact, our boards of directors have a mission committee, and the mission committee has to review everything and also make recommendations one way or another, in addition to, of course, the business side of things. So everything gets filtered through two different views, on the business side of things, but also on the mission side of things. Do they meet? And both committees have to bring something forward before it gets voted on by the board, which is an incredible thing to have in an organization. Now, jumping back to, this moment that we're in right now, this big, deep pause that the whole entire country is really focused on, COVID-19 and what's that creating for folks. And a lot of us are hunkered down, hopefully healthy and doing okay, but certainly that's impacting our spirit, our inspiration, our daily joy. So there may be a whole host of different emotions that folks are experiencing right now. As a pastor, in particular in your role, connecting with not only employees and certainly lots of different age groups from below millennial all the way through, seniors and our baby boomers, what would you say, what's your take on everything that's emotionally that folks are seeing and experiencing right now?
Well, emotionally, people are scared, and sometimes fear wants to take over. And I think it's very important for us to realize, don't let fear or panic take over. I think it's important that we talk to somebody that we can trust, and whether that's through texting, a phone call, or online, I think it's important that we visit with someone. And also, I think sometimes the fear is there for an important reason. It teaches us to do things. So it's important that we wash our hands and we don't touch our face. And I think people almost are tired of hearing that, but it's interesting that Dr. Fauci usually says at the end of his talk, remember, wash your hands, don't touch your face. And so that just helps us to be able to have some control in our life as well.
That's a very interesting take on it, and certainly something for us to all ponder on. Sometimes fear is meant as a meaningful piece of the experience that we're having. So what kinds of tips or ideas or ways have you already helped some of our seniors or our employees move through and cope with this? And what would you recommend for everybody viewing and listening to this out in the ethers? How can we find inspiration during a moment like this, when we might be gripped by fear, or we might be really worried about somebody that we love, or we might just be starting to feel depressed from not seeing folks every day?
Well, I think sometimes people are watching too much of the news on this, or they keep their television on and they're watching so much of it. And I think you should limit how much you watch on the information coming in. But if you're watching a lot of news about it, look for the helpers. And Mr. Rogers said his mom taught him that. When you're watching something that has bad news, look for those that are helping, because you will see good news in the midst of that. Also, I think it's important at this time that we get up, we walk, we exercise, we do chair exercises, and sometimes it's good to just look for a little humor there and again. Now, I think it's funny that in some states at 8 o'clock every night, they have their children and they go outside and they howl like wolves or coyotes. And so that's bringing people together and not feeling isolated. So I think it's good that we don't feel isolated. And another way, I don't know if it's our seniors listening, every Emmanuel Community Pace Center, long-term care, we have a pastor. And so our pastors are there ready and willing to talk to anyone who needs someone to talk to as well.
Most definitely. Those are really good tips. I love that. Look for the helpers from Mr. Rogers. I think that's a fantastic tidbit. And I would totally agree with you 100% that there's so much news out there that's really intended to, since, there's a lot of things going on in the world, and certainly many people having to cope with and deal with COVID-19 and what, that's doing for them personally and in their families and people that they love. And there's a lot of amazing healthcare workers, our teams included, that are out there being heroes every day, helping to support folks through these moments and what COVID-19 is doing on the health side of things. But looking for helpers, looking for the moments of inspiration, the stories of inspiration, there's so many of those equally. I mean, in fact, Emmanuel put out a call for masks, cloth masks. I know some groups are making them, some individuals are making them. We put out a call for those for our residents that we could give to all of our residents and some of our non-essential health, like not our healthcare staff, our other staff members, employees that could wear them. And we've already gotten a lot of really great feedback on that. And that's just one small little bit of inspiration. I love that. The howling, that's great. Ways that people can come together to connect with community, but even if it's not right in front of them, even if they're not touching the other individual, but they're able to just sort of feel a part of the sense of the community. I love that. And then of course, pastors. I mean, even if you're not part of Emmanuel communities, and we're certainly very, very blessed to have pastors in all of our communities and our pathway centers, that's fantastic on our end. But even if you don't have that direct connection, most likely the pastor at your church or a local pastor in general will be willing to help support you if you had questions or you wanted to lean on that side of support at this moment. I also understand that we've created a really fun way that people can connect back with us and maybe take some of that daily dose of inspiration and hope away with them every single day. So will you share a little bit more about what kind of support is available for somebody who's hunkering down at home, or a family member who's worried about, their loved one hunkering down at home, or even some of our healthcare workers that are on the front lines. And a big shout out to all of those heroes out there doing amazing work every day, the Emmanuel team and all the other healthcare workers out there supporting and helping our country fight through this. Where can we find some additional hope?
Well, we've created at Emmanuel the Emmanuel Hope Hotline. And so every morning by 10 a.m., I load a new message, and it can be a story of inspiration. It could be scripture, and it's a daily reminder to say, in the midst of this, we will get through this pandemic, and that God walks with us. And I know there have been many people who have been listening between our seniors and staff and even out in the community, and I hope more people continue to call in. It's fun to do because I like to watch what's happening in the world and the news, and I like to carry the scriptures with me and read those, and so I try to find a way for them to connect. And as we look for God winks out there that are happening, that gives us hope.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So Emmanuel's Hope Hotline, if you haven't, we have this right here on the resource page. So the number is right there in front of you that you can certainly call into. Like Peggy said, 24/7. It's available 24/7, and there's a new message every single day by 10 a.m. That is absolutely outstanding. I can certainly say from personal experience, I've been calling into it every day, and it really does give me a nice little shot of joy, a little shot of inspiration. Sometimes a little bit of a chuckle or a flat out laugh, depending on what the message is. But I always really do appreciate that. Thank you for that, Peggy. I mean, that's a really nice thing that you're helping us with. So social distancing means a great deal, and to churches in particular, to congregations in particular, they're not necessarily gathering in the same ways that they typically do, which is in person and inside of the church. Many of them are closed. What are different ways that people can continue to practice faith, even though, church may be closed or they may not be leaving their house?
Well, that's an interesting question, Jennifer. So for many churches, they're going online. They might have a YouTube channel. Some are Zooming. But for many people, too, there have been churches that have been doing this ministry for years on television. So I've had people say, I'm not usually a television kind of church person, but they're finding that very helpful as well. Also, all they have to do is open up their Bible. They can find some inspirational words there. And I know there were a number of churches that people even did a drive-up church. They went to their church, they stayed in their cars, and they had church through the drive-up. So people are getting very creative, finding ways to worship. And at Emmanuel, many of our communities are delivering a Sunday bulletin with scripture readings, words to a hymn, and that way they can feel like they've had a little bit of church as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's fantastic. We've talked a little bit about faith, and we've talked, of course, about Emmanuel and the fact, I don't know that we mentioned, but Emmanuel is a serving arm of the ELCA. So we're closely tied in that regard. And we were in fact founded by a pastor in 1887, Pastor Fulgerstrom, and the deaconesses who helped build the original structure that Emmanuel was based on, and then did a lot of amazing other work and mission work during that, during those formative years for Emmanuel. But for folks who maybe are not connected to a denomination, or maybe they're spiritual in another way, Emmanuel is open to all different walks of that. And really, when we talk about spiritual care, it's about the spirit of the human being, about the spirit of the person. So for folks who are not necessarily connected to a denomination, who may not be as interested in church in the way in which we think about it, talk to us a little bit about how we can practice and lean on our faith, even though we may not be, connected in the same traditional ways of faith that one might have thought.
Well, Jennifer, at Emmanuel, in our mission statement, Christ-centered service to seniors, each other, and the community, what we stand as central is Jesus loved all people, and we love all people. So whether they are not only different denomination, of different faiths, even non-believers, they're all welcome. And I think what they will find in Emmanuel is that they will feel that compassion, which I dare say they will feel loved. And I always love to read our surveys. I'm going back to that again, but our staff say their favorite thing of work is the seniors, and the seniors' favorite thing is the staff. And these relationships are built, and people end up loving one another, and that transcends everything. And when I read the surveys, one of the favorite things is our staff feel that they have meaningful work. And I just think that's the beauty of Emmanuel. And the name Emmanuel means God with us. And I truly believe God walks with us in our ministry here.
I love that. And I would wholeheartedly agree with everything that you've just said. It's really an extraordinary place to serve, an extraordinary place to be a colleague with other individuals that are serving in the same capacity, and an extraordinary place to see so many lives and people thriving. So for everybody out there in the community at large, if you're at home hunkering down, or if you're in one of our communities, or if you're one of our Pathways participants, or if you're a family member wondering what's going on with your loved one, what would you say? What final words of inspiration would you leave us with today, Peggy?
I would reiterate, God is with us. We will get through this. There's hope there, and God will prevail. And life will get back to normal. I don't know when, but it will, and we'll be stronger together through it. Thanks, Jennifer.
Really appreciate that. And folks out there listening, for sure, make sure that you check out the Hope Hotline. You're going to get a boost of inspiration every day. And who doesn't want a boost of inspiration every day? Sometimes they're funny, especially if you're a healthcare worker out there. Peggy does a great job really lifting up and supporting, and we know that there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of emotions that folks are feeling, either hunkering down at home, either worried about their family members. Maybe you've got a loved one who's serving as a healthcare worker. Maybe you are a healthcare worker out there, and you certainly are out as a hero fighting the good fight and helping all of us brave COVID-19 together as a nation. Big shout out there. Big thank you once again to all the healthcare people out there helping us through that. But do take advantage of the Hope Hotline. I highly recommend it. I've really enjoyed it myself. I've shared it with everybody I know. And I think it's just a really great way for us to get through this, in addition to some of those other really good ideas that you left with us. And we'll have those tips in a downloadable tip sheet here, right here on this resource page. So check back for more information. We'll be back again with another resource video with you very shortly. Thanks again, Peggy. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Jennifer. Bye-bye, everyone.